California edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Thank you for joining us. On this episode, we will be speaking with Mike Morrell, member of the California State Assembly. Then we'll speak to Gloria Negrete McLeod. She's a member of the California State Senate, also running for the U.S. Congress. And after the senator, we'll be speaking with Greg Imus. He is also a candidate for the U.S. Congress in a different district. But we start with Assemblyman Mike Morrell. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Sir, you represent portions of San Bernardino County. And as you know, the city of San Bernardino recently declared bankruptcy, the major city in that county. Talk to me about that. It's got to be devastating for the region.
Well, San Bernardino was already devastated. You know, 1977 was considered one of America's favorite cities, unfortunately.
Right.
But I think, you know, government contributes to things. Maybe some mismanagement, other times bad policies.
I want to talk about government because it's a very interesting debate about how much government and changes in government contributed to the bankruptcy. As you know, California had almost 400 redevelopment agencies until they were eliminated. Governor Brennan called for their elimination. The California Supreme Court upheld that elimination. The mayor of San Bernardino has said that the loss of redevelopment dollars contributed to their demise. What do you think of that?
Well, here's what I think. Look at, you know, our founding principles talked a little bit about a little distrust for centralized government. And, you know, I have mayors, cities and mayors within my district that they did take redevelopment money, but they were very cautious not to count on it because they didn't trust the state. You know? And they knew they could have the rug pulled out from underneath them. Second thing too, economies expand and they contract. And you know, when we were growing up, you know, all of our parents told us save for a rainy day. And so I think the cities that counted on the RDA money, the redevelopment money, probably wasn't the most prudent thing to do.
We know Compton, as we speak, is on the verge of bankruptcy. Another issue.
And by the way, what worries me when San Bernardino filed bankruptcy, you know, I know they're in a tough position, and I feel for them. Feel for me, since that's one of the cities in my district. But the challenge is that gives other cities cover to file bankruptcy, and you may see a domino effect. But here's the long-term problem that I see is California is already suspect with lenders. You know, it's difficult to get bondholders, but also tough for small businesses to get business loans to be able to expand their business. Real estate, you know, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac sort of is watching this area, and so this is going to exacerbate the problem even more.
Well, let's talk about real estate. We know that the Inland Empire has been ground zero for the foreclosure crisis. And San Bernardino, both city and county, was right in the center of that. I mean, San Bernardino City has lost, I think, $16 million a year in taxes, property sales, over the last 2 years. Ooh, I mean, this foreclosure crisis.
And again, the foreclosure crisis is tough. This bankruptcy, again, will make it even tougher because if they have to cut back on fire and safety, you know, you're going to have other people move. But then again, too, if they go to raise taxes, you're going to have people move out of the city.
Well, it's interesting.
What they really need to do is start cutting where they have to cut and make those tough decisions.
You talk about fire and police. I mean, there has been discussions about, I guess, centralizing, not decentralizing, but possibly shutting down the local fire and police departments and contracting with the county.
Well, you know, I've heard that could be. Somebody else suggested maybe a quarter of the fire department, for an example, maybe has volunteers like they used to use. So, you know, there are options that they can have. But again, they're all going to be tough choices to make. And that's where San Bernardino's leadership is going to have to make those tough choices because the money it's not there.
Right. You've lived in this region for quite some time, so you surely remember Norton Air Force Base.
I do, and that was part of the thing that contributed.
Huge driver. I mean, when it closed in '94, as I understand it, that's when the dominoes really began to fall. Yeah,
you know, I think also they set up, you know, they went after low-income housing. I think every city should have a section, parts for low-income housing, but they sort of attached their wagon to that. And so, you know, that was part of the problem. My understanding is then, of course, Norton Air Force closed, and then, you know, the thing with a tough economy. And then another problem was the RDAs.
Is there anything the state of California can do? You're a state elected official.
The state needs to quit taking money from local municipalities. That's probably the fifth challenge that's happened.
They can't anymore because of Prop 22. And RDA money is no longer city and county money.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that may be the good news pursuant to that philosophy. I do want to talk about taxes because the outgoing city manager, he resigned a few months back, of San Bernardino, told the city council, you need to raise taxes. We are not going to be able to make ends meet. And the city wouldn't do it because they felt this was not the right time to raise taxes. The current governor of California is saying the same thing. We need to raise taxes right now. For a short time, for 4 years, increase sales tax by a quarter cent. For 7 years, increase tax on the wealthy. What do you think about that notion that even though we're in tough times right now, we may need to look at raising taxes?
I think it's a notion. We're overtaxed already. That's why, so many governors right now, an article in Wall Street Journal last year asked various governors from different states, what's your economic recovery strategy? Their answer is, we're going to go to California and rate it of its jobs and its economy because we tax too much and we overregulate.
Well, we know there's no doubt. Every poll that comes out of businesses say California has a regulatory problem. We're at the top of those lists of poor regulatory environment. On taxes, though, those same polls seem to put California in the middle. I'm not an accountant.
Well, it all depends how you look at it. If you look at the state income tax, we're towards the high. But remember, we have other things from, vehicle license fees. We've got business licenses. We've got some of the highest sales tax. We even have dog license fees,
we do have great research and development credits, which can offset our tax burden.
Yeah. Well, again, look at people vote as well as businesses with their feet. There is no doubt that businesses are leaving because they see more opportunity in other states. The nation's top 500 CEOs recently rated California as the worst place to do business in America right now.
And it's a focus, and I guess what I'm trying to get at is the focus of that has been the regulatory
And remember, when you look back throughout history, for an example, Carter, the top tax rate under him was 70%. Reagan came along, lowered that to, I think, 26%. And of course, they said the sky was going to fall, but revenues doubled. And not only that, it was the largest expansion of jobs in the history of our country by 21 million new jobs.
And as I understand it, the tax rate is even lower than under the Reagan administration, the effective tax rate.
But
most importantly, sir, we have a governor, a Democratic governor, who has said we have too many damn regulations. We have Republicans in the legislature saying we have too many damn regulations. Isn't now the time?
Yeah. But here's what I believe about our governor. I say this with all respect. He says one thing, but he does not put his money where his mouth is. He does not go further. We've asked him to cut, a number of regulations.
There's been some CEQA reform, for example.
Not very much, though. And AB 32 is.
But the voters, 61% said don't delay. It was there was an attempt to delay AB 32, and the voters said no.
Yeah, but again, that's a big job killer. We're seeing that.
But the problem is, if the voters said no, what do we do to move forward? We got to look forward. The voters have been clear; they want AB 32. You're a businessman. You know how to negotiate deals. You're friends with Democrats.
Well, here's one other thing too. I don't think they had enough information. Let's go back to high-speed rail. They voted for high-speed rail. Now some polls show as high as 71% of them. Now that they understand.
But I guess what I'm saying is look, I understand. Believe me, it's the same with healthcare. The Supreme Court has said it's constitutional. So looking forward, what is a businessman like you, a negotiator?
Yeah. We have to get back to our nation's founding principles, and that is citizens know just as well how to spend their money than the bureaucrats up in Sacramento or Washington, D.C. So we have to reduce taxes, and so that way citizens can invest in their families as well as businesses can invest that money back into their businesses, which is going to create jobs. When most of your business owners that I know, I'm a business owner myself, when they make profits, what they do is they pour the profits back into their business, and their greatest resource is people. And what they do is they hire people. Next thing you know, they get a paycheck. Now they go and buy furniture. Now the furniture manufacturer. So anyway, that's how you create real wealth.
Mike Morrell, I thank you for joining us. He's a member of the California State Assembly. When we come back, we'll be speaking with one of his colleagues from the state Senate. Her name is Gloria Negrete McLeod. I'm Brad Pomerance. We'll be right back.
From 1980 through the first quarter of 2012, how many governmental entities have filed for Chapter 9 bankruptcy? 254, 672, 893, or 1,297? 254 governmental entities have filed bankruptcy under Chapter 9 from 1980 through the first quarter of 2012, with 4/5 of those bankruptcies filed by school, hospital, and similar districts.
Welcome back to California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Our guest, Gloria Negrete McLeod, member of the California State Senate, also a candidate for the U.S. Congress. We just spoke with Assemblyman Mike Morrell about the crisis in the city of San Bernardino. Like Mike Morrell, you represent portions of the city of San Bernardino and the county as well. Devastating. It's the third city so far that's declared bankruptcy, more surely around the corner. Give me your take on the bankruptcy of the city of San Bernardino.
Well, just to clarify, I probably represent the largest portion of San Bernardino. It came as a complete shock.
Did it though?
Yes, absolutely.
No idea.
Had no idea. I have staff members who attend the city council meetings. And usually, you know, when things like that, there's inklings all over, there's little rumbles, little rumors. I had absolutely no idea. When I learned about it, was in the paper that morning.
It's interesting you say that because the city attorney of San Bernardino has suggested there may have been some shenanigans. Allegedly, the sheriff is investigating. The resigned city manager tried to raise some red flags. So it's hard to know what really they knew.
Yeah, but however, most cities and all other public entities have auditors. I mean, legitimate auditors. Right. So if it's been going on that long, then the city was not following the auditor's suggestions.
Well, we know there's a tremendous amount of infighting in that city between city council members, the mayor, the city attorney. But the mayor has said something very specific, and he has said that the elimination of redevelopment by the state of California played a role in the demise of the city. You were in Sacramento when redevelopment was eliminated. It was bolstered by the governor, a Democratic governor. What do you think?
Well, I think that if that's the only thing, I like Mayor Morse, but if that's the only thing that you're saying that caused your city to collapse, then
yeah, I mean, he's not saying that, but look.
I can imagine that it had part to do because those cities their whole budgets were contingent on redevelopment. That is not what redevelopment was made for. When redevelopment, and we've talked about this on other programs, in the 50s, it was to take care of blight, and it wasn't to take care of the rest of your budget. It was to reestablish your city, to fix those blighted areas.
I mean, there's no question that many cities would use redevelopment as somewhat of a slush fund and intend to pay it back in future years when matters got better. As I understand it, San Bernardino couldn't really pay back anything. Right before the filing, they had $150,000 in the bank. A city of over 200,000 people. I mean, it was crushing. I do want to, though, talk to you about another potential cause. I think it's somewhat obvious, and that's the recession.
Well, the recession, and don't forget San Bernardino, way back in the 80s, lost Norton. They
Air
lost
Force Base.
A lot of other things, as did other cities, that really depended on all that income from the people working there and doing things at the Air Force bases.
City historians have looked at San Bernardino and have pointed to the loss of Norton Air Force Base as the beginning of the end.
Of the unraveling.
Yeah, would you agree?
Probably. You know, that was not my city till I became a senator, and then I saw how also foreclosures were there, and the recession, and a whole lot of other things that were in the mix.
Let's talk about foreclosures, because the Inland Empire has been known as, I said this with Assemblyman Mike Morrell, ground zero for the foreclosure crisis. Many homes underwater in San Bernardino. In fact, the county of San Bernardino is looking at a plan whereby they would take foreclosed homes via eminent domain and become the property landlords.
And let those people that live there continue to live there, and therefore maintaining the property, maintaining the neighborhood.
No doubt an innovative plan. We don't know what's going to happen, but what we do know is California has become a forerunner when it comes to foreclosure relief. Recently, the state legislature, you voted yes on the Homeowners Bill of Rights. Talk to me about the magnitude of this plan. It's seen as really groundbreaking.
Well, like you said, California is the forerunner in foreclosures. We were able to, our Attorney General was able to get the largest settlement from all of the the people that supposedly caused it. But there was a lot of other factors that caused the whole meltdown. But what I think, to me, the biggest, largest thing on the Homeowners Bill of Rights was the ability for a homeowner to have one point of reference.
Single
because
point of contact.
over and over, we keep hearing that they call the bank and they talk to Joe, and then the next time they said, well, send us the documents. The next time they talked to Mary Lou, and they said, we don't have the documents.
And we don't know Joe.
Then we don't know Joe, and Joe is on vacation.
Right.
And it keeps on going on and on.
And what else was frustrating for homeowners, as I understand it, is while you're talking to Joe and Mary Lou to work out a modification, Sam and Jane are proceeding with foreclosure.
They're not talking to each other, so Joe and Mary and what did I
Mary
say?
Lou?
Mary Lou are not talking to James and whomever
Right.
over here, and there have people that were actually in the process of modifying their loan, and they close down and they go home and there's a lock on
A
their
foreclosure.
door. Yes.
But so the point is dual tracking, which is the metaphor, the name
Yes.
of that practice.
Yes. To immediately
It stopped.
halt it. Immediately halt
No dual tracking. I mean, California is the first in the nation to prevent dual tracking.
Yeah.
And that is a huge development. That was not part, as I understand it, of the national settlement with 49 states.
And of course, there's no robo-signing here in
Right.
California. Some of those other states that did it automatically, because we're a different kind of a state, you
Right.
actually have to go through an
Right,
institution.
judicial, right. There is one source of serious contention in the bill, and that deals with a specific right of action, that homeowners can file a lawsuit against an institution if they believe that the institution did not comply with the Homeowners Bill of Rights.
But they can only sue for, over material violation,
Right.
not just any willy-nilly thing. So it has to be materially founded.
Right, but are you concerned that, I mean, a lot of folks believe that there are countless frivolous lawsuits filed. And if someone is given a specific right of action, anyone can say anything. You know, anyone could say, oh, they entered into a material breach. Are you concerned about frivolous actions on the rise?
Well, we will see if there, in fact, that materializes. If it does, then we as a legislature can go back and then change it. Of course, in the legislature, there are many of us who really do not like the frivolous lawsuits, and we have tried to do quite a bit of legislation to actually halt that.
Now, let's presume that you join other members of Congress in Washington come January, because you are a candidate
Yes.
for the United States Congress. Will you be able to do more to protect homeowners? Or has the federal government done what it can do and it now is up to the states?
No, I think the federal government has to have a little bit more accountability and then pass it on to the states. And hopefully, with the experience that I have from the legislature, will allow me then to continue my work for my community at the federal level.
Well, let's talk more about it. I mean, you have been in Sacramento, is it 10 years?
12.
12 years?
12.
12 years. So no doubt you understand how Sacramento works. Washington is a very different place. Why are you choosing to run for Congress? Other than the obvious, of course, it's exciting, it's a step.
Well, no. It's you know that I get that asked all the
Right.
time and say, why would you want to go there? What do you
Right.
what do you want to do? I think it's just a continuance of my public service, because I truly believe that those that get elected are nothing more than public servants.
And what's interesting about your race, out of the 52 congressional races in California, every 2 years we have a race, you're one of 7 or 8 seats where it's an intra-party battle. You're running against a Democrat. We're going to be speaking with Greg Imus coming up. He's running against a Republican in a general. This is the first time this has happened.
Well, that's what happened with the open primary. I think everybody thought that you were going to get, I don't know what they thought,
Right.
to tell you the truth. I think they thought that there was going to be the third party, but listen.
It didn't happen.
That doesn't happen, and I don't think it'll ever happen.
Okay.
Irrespective of what everybody thought.
Her name is Gloria Negrete McLeod. She's a member of the California State Senate. She is a candidate for the U.S. Congress. My name is Brad Pomerance. When we come back, we'll be speaking with Greg Imus, another candidate for the U.S. Congress from a different district. We'll be right back on California Edition.
Which state faced the highest rate of foreclosure filings in the U.S. in June 2012? Arizona, California, Florida, or Nevada? In June 2012, California faced the highest rate of foreclosure filings, 1 out of every 288 housing units. Arizona came in second, Nevada came in third.
Welcome back to California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Our guest, Greg Imus, he is running for Congress as a result of the open primary in June. He is one of 2 candidates that have advanced to the general election, and he is in a race where he's running against a Republican. Out of the 52 districts in the state, 7 or 8 races have intra-party battles.
Right.
That's got to be very interesting. You are a Republican, and you are running against a Republican in a general election.
Right.
How do you play that? It's new, uncharted territory.
You know, Brad, in my race, I haven't looked over these others, but in my race, there is a dramatic difference between me and my opponent. I've never run for or held political office. I'm really a Tea Party candidate. I'm running against the establishment. My opponent is you know, I consider him part of the establishment. He's a career politician. He's been at this a long time. And so I'm just calling this race, it's we the people against the establishment. And so I've got a lot of Tea Party support in our district. I've got a big grassroots movement going. So, and anyway, so that's where we're at.
Let's talk about your district, because I think it's fair to say that the Tea Party has done very well in certain parts of the country. It doesn't feel like the Tea Party has really taken off in California as a state. Now, there are certain regions for sure that it has done well. You're running in a district that includes a large portion of San Bernardino County, the geographic portion, not necessarily the population centers, as well as Inyo and Mono counties. Tell me about those areas. Do you feel as if your message, your Tea Party message, resonates?
It actually does, because the majority of San Bernardino County in this district that I would represent, and all of Inyo and Mono, it's mountains and desert. So most of these people are fairly like-minded politically, so it's the same kind of people you're after. I speak to a lot of groups. A lot of them are Tea Party groups. There's no real big Tea Party groups within the district, but in the different areas, there's a lot of small groups. And the Tea Party, people looks at them as a party or a movement. They're really not organized. They're just we the people standing up, wanting their elected officials to listen to them and represent them.
I want to talk about a major issue for Republicans, for Tea Party candidates, and that deals with health care. As you know, the U.S. Supreme Court upheld the Affordable Care Act. And we have heard candidates like yourself saying you will do everything you can to repeal the Affordable Care Act. The House of Representatives, the Republican House, has voted 33 times to repeal all or part of the Affordable Care Act. We hear you loud and clear on repeal. Mitt Romney will say repeal and replace. What I'm not hearing, and what the people I speak to are not hearing, is what's the replace?
I'm not running on replace, because before, like currently, we do not have, I just call it Obamacare. That's what I'll label it. And so, but currently, I just did an interview the other day, and someone says, well, if you're going to repeal it and not offer something, you're going to allow people to die, you know, in waiting rooms, and that doesn't happen. We have policies right now where anyone will be seen.
But that's part of the challenge, Greg, is that for people who don't have health care insurance, they go to emergency rooms when they really should have started with primary care, but they can't get primary care because they don't have insurance. And you know, emergency rooms are incredibly expensive. And so the system as it stands now, no, we can all agree it's not working. So repeal, okay. Repeal, I mean, a lot of people agree with that, but it's the replace that frustrates voters. That's what I hear. I mean, I'm neutral. That's what I hear. It's like, okay, replace with what?
Well, here's my opinion. First of all, it should have been shot down based on constitutionality.
But we need to move on after that.
Okay,
off that.
Okay, so it is not the government's job to replace. It is not the government's job to supply health care or replace health care. The private sector has come up with health care in the past. And the private sector
but the government is, I mean, in the business of healthcare. I mean, you think about
Medicare,
Medicaid, Medi-Cal. I mean, well, let me ask you this. You know, Paul Ryan, for example, a Wisconsin congressperson, has called to change Medicare, whereby seniors would shop for insurance with a voucher.
Right.
That's a plan that's definitely been floated.
Well, there are plans out there. I haven't really adapted a plan that fits in the direction that I want to move. but I am moving towards the repeal primarily because I believe it's unconstitutional. You can't mandate or force someone or force a tax on people to pay for health care.
So, but here's the challenge, and I'm really pushing you because
Sure.
I know you can handle it.
Sure.
The challenge is, I understand that you believe it's unconstitutional. 4 members of the Supreme Court agreed with you, but 5 didn't. And so it's constitutional. As it stands now, it's constitutional. So look, it could get repealed. I mean, there's no doubt. You know, in 2013, it could get repealed. But what voters are saying is, if you are going to push for repeal, what's in its place? What's working now is not working.
You know what? I think people have to take responsibility for their own health care. I mean, I look back. I've been married 34 years. I have children. There was a time when we first got married, I couldn't afford health insurance. Our first few children, I had to make payments for several years. I paid for it. People need to step up and take care of their own health insurance. It is not the government's job to provide them a policy for health insurance. There's avenues out there.
But in the final analysis, like you said, we don't turn anyone away. So if someone doesn't get health insurance,
Right.
we're going to pay for it. We, the people,
Right.
we, the taxpayers. So it's frustrating because, again, you know, I don't know if the Affordable Health Care Act is the right solution.
Well,
but what I do know is that if you don't have health care in America, you're going to get it anyway, and we, the people, are paying.
Well, Brad, I'll just finish with this.
Please.
Let me just tell you, if I get to Congress, I've already thought this through. I will move towards whatever policy is adapted, whether it is this Affordable Care Act, whether it's something that gets put in its place, that every member of Congress and the government adapt that same policy for themselves. They have no option
have heard
other
that.
than that. And I am
Congress
firm
members
behind
have
it.
great health care coverage.
So whatever the solution is, it will be something that I want every member of Congress to have as well as the people.
You also have been speaking about what we know as Agenda 21,
Yes.
which is it was an item passed by the United Nations in 1992. It dealt with sustainable development. Right. As I understand it, it's not binding, it's voluntary, but there's been a lot of concern about it. The state of Alabama, for example, has passed a law prohibiting participation by the state in Agenda 21. Tell me your concerns with Agenda 21.
Well, my biggest concern is it's a UN item, it's a UN resolution, and I see many members in our government and of Congress wanting to adapt it, and they have been. This Agenda 21 is being adapted in. I've read the entire document of this Agenda 21. It's a lot about saving the planet, environmental issues, reaching our children with environmental issues at a younger age, protecting our children. It all sounds good, but they're using parts of that document to bring in the UN Small Arms Treaty. And so what I see,
What is that? Forgive me. What's the UN Small Arms Treaty?
Oh, it's what Hillary Clinton's been pushing, this UN document to basically, in a roundabout way, eventually disarm America. My concern with this UN document is there's this move to move away from the U.S. Constitution and let this document, this UN resolution, be replace the Constitution.
But you really think that in America we would disarm, let the UN take over, or we would let the UN dictate our environmental laws?
Oh, I absolutely believe there's an agenda right now that's being pushed that yes, I do believe that.
But whether it's President Obama, President Romney, I mean, you really think they'd let the UN tell us what to do? I mean, we're America.
And that's my position. Mm-hmm. We are a sovereign nation. We stand alone. We should never allow the UN to dictate policy over the United States. I just see many times our president and our leadership going to the UN to solve policies in the U.S., and my concern is that UN policy and agenda will usurp our Constitution and replace it, and I don't want that to happen.
Most importantly, in our final moments, you're running for office for the first time. You're out and about. How is it going, sir? I mean, you're talking to voters. What's it like? Huge district.
Really why we really took the lead, I didn't mail, I didn't do a lot of things that you can do with money, but we had a message and I walked.
How was it for you? Tell me. I mean,
you're
a
a
human being.
I've changed a lot as a human because I started a year ago. And I knew how it affected me, this bad economy, and how it affected my business. But when you show up at people's doorsteps and you see where they're at.
In their eyes.
Yeah, we hear on the news that things are getting better. But I'm sorry, I've been at the people's doorsteps in this district. There's some people doing fine. There's a lot of hurting people, hurting fathers, and it's a tough time for people out there.
Imus, I want to thank you for joining us. Best of
you,
luck
Brad.
in November. He is Greg Imus, candidate for U.S. Congress. My name is Brad Pomerance. Thanks for watching Charter California Edition.